It's Monday and time for Begnaud's America, where David, he finds the heart in every story. David says your heart will be full after you meet Steve Gleason. It's his first interview since receiving the Arthur Ashe Award for Courage at this year's ESPYs. 13 years ago, Gleason was diagnosed with ALS, a nervous system disease that affects the brain and spinal cord and causes loss of muscle control. Gleason details his death-defying journey in his memoir, A Life Impossible: Living with ALS, Finding Peace and Wisdom Within a Fragile Existence. And if you have any tissues nearby, grab them now. David, good morning.
It's a must-see. Good morning, my friend. Look, Steve wrote this book with his eyes. He wrote it with his eyes and the help of AI software to type every letter and word. We sent him the questions in advance, and it took him about a week to respond. What you are about to see is one of the most moving interviews I have ever done. America first met Steve Gleason in 2006 when he blocked a punt during the New Orleans Saints' first home game after Hurricane Katrina.
Touchdown, New Orleans!
That symbolized a rebirth of New Orleans. After 8 years in the NFL, Steve retired in 2008. In 2011, he was diagnosed with ALS. That same year, he and his wife Michel started Team Gleason, a foundation which has provided over $40 million in technology, equipment, and care services to people living with ALS. Because of his heart and his chutzpah, the 47-year-old Gleason was honored at the ESPYs in July with the Arthur Ashe Award for Courage. It is an honor given to those who possess strength, courage, and the willingness to stand up for their beliefs. One of my favorite people, Steve Gleason, is here with his wife, Michel. Welcome to Times Square.
Thanks for having us.
First off, David, Michel and I would like to express our gratitude for you and all of the CBS Mornings team. We're grateful for your time, patience, and effort sharing our story. And we had a great time with you yesterday at the US Open. Thanks, y'all. We love you.
Steve, in the book, your wife, Michel, has described your diagnosis as you going from frustrated to fearful to angry. Where are you now?
The readers will see that 13 years of living with this gnarly disease, and I'm over a decade past my expiration date, so I have the wilderness of fear tattooed all over me. Through the process of losing control of everything, the one thing that seemed to be at least somewhat in my control was my mindset. Where am I now, David? I like to think of ALS as something of a postdoctorate research project on being human. It's like I'm investigating what can people do to move from fear to freedom, from suffering to strength, from loss to love, or from hell to heaven. This body may be a prison, but my mind is free.
That's beautiful, Steve. I mean, it's the profundity to your words are so deeply moving. Where are you on that question?
I'm still frustrated, angry. It's difficult. I have not transcended all like Steve has, but I'm also able to move and talk and feel. I am proud of him for where he is, because I really can't imagine, being around it, I can't imagine being, having to do what he does every day, but being on the other side, I'm still taking care of the kids, helping with him, more in a real world, and wishing that he could do more for him, more for me, more for the kids. At the same time, so grateful that he is here with us and able to do all he does for us.
Michel, you are radically candid in the book about things like intimacy, communication, all that kind of stuff. Be radically candid with us about your struggle with his lack of ability to communicate with you.
It is literally sometimes nearly impossible. His technology doesn't always work. His eyes get tired, and if some days I just want to be like, I just wish today we could have like a regular conversation to figure out the next week. And again, when you have a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old, it's painful to watch, because I know how much he wants to be communicating with them, because communication is, for humans, basically everything.
I want to talk to you about that legendary punt block back in 2006. You call it one of your proudest moments. I wonder what goes through your mind when you relive that moment from 2006.
In 2006, when I blocked the punt on Monday Night Football, it was undoubtedly a phenomenon that was much more important than winning a football game. But I didn't realize just how much more until a text conversation with Brian Johnson. Brian is a former pastor from New Orleans who was diagnosed with ALS in 2020 and has become a dear and trusted friend. Brian asked me, "I'm curious, if you hadn't blocked that punt, do you think your reach and impact on ALS would be the same?" My answer was, "If I don't block the punt, I'm probably not alive." He was appreciative of my brutal honesty, and his response was, "So if you hadn't blocked the punt, then I'm probably not alive either." He said, "At the time I was just excited. Some long-haired surfer dude lifted my spirits after I lost everything in Katrina. But you actually saved my life." So many people have told us that our foundation's efforts and support have saved their lives. But if I didn't block that punt, I'm just another has-been football player. It's probable that I just fade away and die anonymously. I don't see any of this happening. But here we are. I did block the punt, David. And this community, my family and friends, and their love, continue to uplift me and Michel throughout this crazy, wonderful journey with ALS.
12 years ago, Mr. Steve, you said we all have a timeline. And given the fact that you're still here today, how is living like you have a timeline different than maybe it was 12 years ago?
Yes, David, I find the truth that we all have a timeline absolutely beautiful. And how about this, David? Live like today is the last day you will be able to move, talk, and breathe on your own. How would your perspective shift? Will you be more appreciative and less concerned about achievement or material success, knowing this is your last day of moving? When you hug your child or your partner, when you hold their hand or run your hand through their hair, knowing this is the last time, how much will you appreciate the preciousness of the moment? If I were to request anything from people, it would be practice living with a timeline. Please fully appreciate and truly love this wonderful life.
Mic drop.
Lastly, the hug. Tell me how he gives a hug.
So his, I'm going to show you.
Yeah, tell me, what does he call
So
it?
he says,
Before we go, I want to give you a hug, because I know you give everybody a hug. So what's it called?
Faux-to-faux.
Faux-to-faux.
So it's forehead to forehead, so he can't hug you. You look him in the eyes, and then you put your forehead on his forehead. You can stay as long as you'd like, short or long.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the wisdom and all the grace. Thank you. Rooting for you. Thank you. Love that.
I see why you say that's one of the most moving interviews you've ever done.
And that was just 8 minutes of a 39-minute interview.
Wow.
We've got it all live on the CBS Mornings YouTube page right now.
As I'm watching it, though, I'm trying to figure out how he's communicating, because I don't see his eyes moving. How is he doing this?
So he uses the eyes to move. The keyboard has the letters, and he types every letter, and then he presses play.
eye.
So for our interview, he
Yeah.
would look at the button to play it, to play out every question,
okay.
to answer.
There are so many men that are part of the NFL fraternity, the family. But Gleason is one of those men that we admire deeply. We love what he stands for. We understand what he has been through, and we forever have his back. So seeing you sit down with him, it was beautiful, David.
Nate, you know what I learned? That man's a teacher. And it occurred to me that pain and suffering make some of the best philosophers we know. And when you look at him, you might pity him.
That's
He can't
heavy,
move. He
David.
cannot even close his own eyelids, y'all.
But that man is moving mountains for other people living with ALS. His foundation is giving them vans and new equipment that is extending their lives. I'm telling you, that man is a titan in his chair. Sure, he can't talk, but he's changing lives.
I fell in love with Michel, too.
Right?
I fell in love with Michel and how candid she is and how honest about what they're all dealing with. But you can clearly see that the love they have between the two of them. I've never seen anything like that, I have to say.
Because there are so
an
many
interview like
other
that.
families, as you well know, Gayle, that are struggling like this.
Yeah.
And that is what they're going to identify with.
I'm glad you
Make
said
them
that,
feel
Christine.
That they're not alone.
This story's for them too. It's for every other ALS patient like Steve. And the book is a raw read. If you've got time, go read his memoir.
No, I like his line, practice living with a timeline.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a lesson for all us, pay attention
Bingo.
to your life and your love.
David,
David, that
again.
was great. Thanks for giving that to us.
Done it again.
Thank you.